Hello, everyone, and welcome to Locked On Guardians. I know it is Wednesday Roundup. We will get to that in segment 3. Before then, we're going to bust some narratives. We're going to talk about some potential breakouts for this season, names to watch, and we will get into, of course, the Jose of it all. Can't get away from the Jose rumors, can we?
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
So let's get into the latest Jose rumor from Hector Gomez that the Padres are pushing. Now, if you've been listening to the show or you follow me on Twitter, I talked about that idea last week on the show. I tweeted it out that the Padres would make more sense. And, I was talking with some people I trust, and he told me that, this particular rumor holds no weight, that there could be a trade, that's not completely off the table. It does not sound good for an extension. Basically, all the positive and the negativity of this seems to be completely leaking out of Jose's camp right now. It's very unfortunate the way it's played out. It's just another annoyance, I guess. I felt very good. We had a whole show about Jose contract. Could we finally keep an MVP in town? Doesn't look like it. I still think personally you hold out. I think you wait because if you get close to the deadline, I don't think you're going to lose any value, and there's a chance that he could increase in value because of AJ Preller knowing his job is on the line, that he is going to have a little bit more desperation. I don't think you get CJ Abrams right now, but could you get CJ Abrams at the deadline? I think potentially. I think it could be part of something. I had people talking about Abrams, Cappuccino, and Gore. I was like, that's not going to happen now or even later. But it's still something that it's fun to dream about. It's fun to talk about. But that's really all I have to say about Jose right now. Nothing has changed. We're in the same holding pattern we have been in. Shame on all of us for getting excited for a moment there and thinking that this team was going to keep a star. It's rough, and I had someone counter argument that when the Jacobs were here, they get no one comes down on them, and they couldn't keep anyone, and that's true. Cleveland has not been able to keep anyone during any of their time here. But the one thing you have to say about the Jacobs is that they never had payrolls this low when their teams were decent. That's just a frustration. And I know there'll be people saying, well, you don't want to spend just to spend. There are ways to upgrade your team. We've talked about it. If your payroll is going to be this ginormously low, take a bad contract and get something valuable. Extend your players outside of, Class A was step one. There should be more. Before we get into the other segments, let's talk about this Austin Meadows trade, because boy, were fans angry, to put it lightly, because, we've talked about Meadows on the show. And Meadows is incredibly, incredibly flawed. He's essentially a DH. You could make a real case that he is a worse defender than Ramirez. And you might not believe that, but that's just, the data is there to show you. He is a disaster out there. He's basically a poor man's Winker, right? He crushes one half of a platoon and he can't play any defense. That is what Meadows is. Now, all he cost was a Comp B round pick, which is about $1 million more in pool money, plus that pick between the second and third round. How about multiple Comp B picks traded 2 in a row in back-to-back days? I'm loving it. I was talking about that the Guardian should be targeting extra Comp B picks or extra just picks in general. It hasn't happened. They haven't done anything. It's like poking the dead animal with a stick meme right now. But it was fun to see other teams do that. Now, and then Isaac Paredes. Now, I probably butchered his name. Here's the thing. If you look at Zips projection, Zips projects Paredes to be a 2.2 and Meadows to be a 2.5. And you get more years of control at a cheaper price. Plus, honestly, if you're the Rays, why do you trade Austin Meadows? Because they immediately called up Josh Lowe, and there's a good chance Josh Lowe is better than Austin Meadows this year. A very good chance. There is a chance that Paredes, I cannot say his name today, outproduces Meadows. That he has a higher WAR. It's not beyond the realm of possibility. He also gives them some options at third base with them having traded away Joey Wendell. It's probably Taylor Wall's position. They kind of want to stick Yandy as a platoon, but that's a crazy thing, right? So they trade away Austin Meadows, who's been good, a solid offensive performer. He's had problems with health. He's had problems with platoon splits. He's had problems with defense, but he can hit. We know he can perform offensively. And the next bat's ready. Josh Lowe is ready to go. Lowe was taken not long after the Guardians drafted Will Benson. I had hit. Now, in fairness, if we want to go back, I can't. I did have Lowe higher than Benson, but I had Nolan Jones higher than both. I missed on that one. They were both these high school shortstops who were going to move to third or potentially the outfield. And I was just I was really high on Jones's power potential. We'll see. But that was that kind of grouping. And, they traded Josh Lowe's brother Nate, was who they traded to the Rangers last year. And I think he's going to perform better than some people expect as a first baseman. Remember, I talked about trying to acquire him last year at the deadline before he was shipped off. So, the Rays make this deal because they have depth for days. They needed another utility type. They save $4.4 million. I don't think that is something you can discount. They get another draft pick. They're able to keep building up their pool. They're pushing back 40-man issues. Because, again, if you listen to the podcast, I said the Guardians should trade for draft picks because the soonest a player you have to add to your 40-man would be 4 years. Now, it might happen quicker, but it gives you a 4-year delay. And, that's what the Rays need. And that's why the Rays went out and did that, because they are so overstuffed. Lowe gets called up. Paredes will take the place of Joey Wendell. And, again, there is a chance that, Austin Meadows is probably going to be, I think he's max a 3-win player, just because of the defensive limitations. Paredes plus Lowe, those two could combine to be worth 5 wins. This is, by opening up a spot and making the trade, the Rays got better. I have no doubt in my mind they got better. The Guardians could have topped it. They had a Comp A pick, which is worth, more than twice the value of that Comp B pick. It's worth $2 million, but it's also because you have that higher pick. You get to pick earlier, so it's worth a little bit more than that pick, than twice that pick's value in general. Similar infielder. No, the thing, Paredes is another guy, though. He's got some elite tools, and he's exactly the type of guy that the Rays go for, and they've been successful developing. Now, you occasionally get Brett Phillips. That didn't work out for them, but they have done really well with a lot of guys like this. So we'll see. The Guardians don't necessarily have, that kind of lesser prospect type who's the athletic profile who can really step right in. But again, the value in the Comp A versus the Comp B would have probably been enough. I understand why people are mad, because the outfield is a disaster. But I'll also say this. I think Steve Kwan ends up having a higher WAR this year if given a chance to play. Given the same opportunities, that's my caveat here. Given the same opportunities, Steve Kwan would outperform Austin Meadows. And I feel comfortable stating that because, again, Meadows is a platoon bat who can't defend. Kwan can defend, and he's not a platoon bat. I'm very confident Steven Kwan would be a 3-win player out of the gate. I really feel if given those opportunities. Unfortunately, it doesn't appear he's going to necessarily get those opportunities, and that's a whole nother bag of Badgers. Unfortunately, we're going to get this overly vet-ridden team, and that's going to be incredibly frustrating. But, it is what it is. We're going to take a sponsor break. We're going to come back, and we're going to discuss why everyone's mad about Meadows, but honestly, it was the deal the day before that the Guardians should have made more than the Meadows deal. And we'll also talk about Andres Jimenez, who, I did a lot of tweeting about today for a very good reason. Okay, so let's talk about the deal that I was more upset by. Again, because Meadows is flawed. I know this team desperately needs a... sorry, I got distracted. Team desperately needs outfield help. I'm not denying that. But I think what's holding them back is they either want that big upgrade or nothing. Unfortunately, here's the bigger thing. The thing I can't understand with this team in general is, they were out there supposedly spending the last year making this big pitch for Jess Winker, and he's expiring. His contract expires the same time as Jose's. What are they doing? What's the way to go? And let's talk about something bigger here. The hoopla from Hector, from Mike Sports, who I quoted on here, and I got excited. Probably wasn't the right move. I probably pushed it too far because I'm this is the guy who was in on another big deal, And it's clear that it's Jose Ramirez's agent leaking things. No deal was ever close. But it's weird that the Guardians would add someone else whose contract and make repeated attempts, but they don't. Again, they should have added Meadows. Like they could have come over the top of that. It would have been helpful. The bigger problem is like, it's hard. Meadows could also be seen as like a lesser version of Franmil. Like that's the thing. Like I'm not as broken up in that regard. Like I'd still much rather see Ramon Laureano. The thing with Meadows is, if you are an old school stat guy, he looks good. He's got 100 RBIs. He hit 30 home runs once. He's not been healthy. Again, that's where I'm conflicted. I'm like, I worry that he's not that good. I worry that he is a tick above average. I worry that he is going to, he's going to another team in the division, so you don't have to worry. But I don't think there's another gear there. Let's put it that way. This other trade that happened the day before, you probably missed, was the Marlins acquiring Tanner Scott and Cole Sulser. Both guys I've talked about on this very podcast for two way down the line prospects. If you don't know the prospects, that's totally fine. In this deal, I only knew one of them. That's because he was a college player. I didn't really know Kevin Guerrero as well. And they get a Comp B pick. Those Comp B picks, man, the value in them. Velez, the starter they got, is interesting because he is definitely a Guardians type of pitcher. This is a guy who got up to Double-A this year. He's 24. He is an older pitcher. He was undrafted in 2020, which was the shortened draft, the 6th-round draft. And last year across 2 leagues, he had a strikeout per 9 of 8.5 and a walk rate of 1. That's right, of 1. He walked 11 batters in 99 innings. So he is a Guardians type. He is a down the line, a control lefty. He is. I've seen the Marlins. I like Jordan Yamamoto a bunch, who they also ended up maybe being the best piece in the Christian Yelich deal once all said and done for them, who was let go and maybe went to the Mets. But they also seem to like the control types. He is now 25. He is, like I said, he was positively ancient for a prospect who's had 1 year of experience. But I get why the Marlins liked him. Like he is not going to be a high-rated prospect. But guys like him, lefties with control like that, they find a way. I wouldn't discount Velez pitching for Baltimore this year. I wouldn't. Guerrero is the 17-year-old kid who's really far away. And the Comp B pick is really the centerpiece. Now here's the thing. Cole Sulser, former Guardians draft pick and player out of Yale, Dartmouth, wrong Ivy League school. He was traded out. Was he part of the... No, he was like a minor piece in that Yandy Diaz deal. So they traded away Diaz and Sulser to get Bauers. I mean, that's one of those things. You can go back and we talk, like Carlos Santana was great for this team. Santana for Edwin. And remember, they traded their Comp B pick that year. And Cleveland traded Jake Bauers, or acquired Jake Bauers for Yandy Diaz, Cole Sulser. And they got Jake Bauers in like $4 million. Like part of the money that was sent in that deal came from Tampa. Tampa sent money in that deal, even though they didn't involve themselves with anyone making money in that deal, to help get it done. And then they, unfortunately to them, they waived Sulser, didn't keep him, and he really blossomed for Baltimore. But I think that's one of those deals you look back on, and it's just a cruddy deal. Like Sulser would definitely be part of this pen. Yandy Diaz would be starting for the Guardians somewhere. It's really unfortunate in that regard. But if you miss the data, he's got a loopy, interesting delivery, and it's taken him a while. But this past year, 10.4 strikeout per 9, 3.3 walk per 9. If you're worried about a FIP, it was 2.98. It was a very sustainable FIP in 63 innings. Like 31 years of age, you have team control of him for 22, 23, 24, 25. 4 years of team control. He's not even arbitration eligible till the end of this year. It is just 1 year, but there's a reason why people have liked him for a while. He is now 32, so you're getting him through all the good years. You don't have to worry about anything else. And you just kind of look at that and you're like, that's pretty valuable. Just a guy who can pitch 60, 70 innings, miss bats, and be effective. And again, FIP, which is a great indicator stat, likes him. Tanner Scott, the other player in this deal, he is from... he's from Warren, Ohio. I thought he was an Ohio kid, went to Notre Dame College in South Euclid, then went to Howard College in Big Spring, Texas, was a 6th-round pick, and he has had some control issues. But at the same time, like his career strikeouts in 5 years in the majors, 170 games, 12.0. His walk rate is 5.5. And again, the Guardians aren't necessarily the best with that. His walk rate last year was a 6.2. But he's a lefty, he misses bats. There's worse things. His FIP for his career is around 4. He can be effective. Sulser is probably more effective. And the other thing is Scott is nearing the, you get him for 22, 23, and 24. 3 years of team control. It's just, I looked at his data. It's like he has been pitching in the big leagues off and on since 2017. But he still has 3 years of team control. So the Marlins traded a end of the 2nd round, beginning of the 3rd round pick to get 2 solid relievers. They also had to give up 2 faraway prospects. Like I thought, I feel pretty good that Tanner Scott and Cole Sulser will also put up a higher WAR than Austin Meadows next year. That's hot take city, right? This is the deal. They could have brought an Ohio kid home. That would have been good. And this pen, what he talked about with the pitching issues, going out and adding a 27-year-old kid from Ohio, it also helps with publicity. It also makes them look a little better. And bringing back Cole Sulser, who was super effective a year ago, the pen is like that underrated weakness on this team. It's really a position that could have been helped. And these guys went really cheaply. And that's why, like I said, this deal was the one that had me more upset than the Meadows deal. Meadows, it's like, okay, we really need kind of more of a right fielder for this organization going forward. That's not necessarily him. This was a deal that would have made them better. Now, of course, it would have also necessitated 2 40-man spots, which we already know what a disaster the 40-man situation is right now, currently. Adding 2 players to the 40-man would have been, they got Lavastida up because they don't have they don't have any choice. They need to figure this out. That's why, a trade needs to happen. And if you're not going to do a trade, for the love of God, I've been all about Zimmer has trade value. If you're not going to, don't start him, and don't give him as an option for Tito to start. He is what he is. He's a solid 4th, 5th outfielder. He's not an everyday player. You can't run Zimmer. Zimmer and Mercado are like the same player. Like running them out there. The Bobby Bradley situation. Tito straight out said Bobby didn't have a good spring, and he's playing first base. He didn't have a good year last year in the big leagues. He had a good June. Everything else, not so much. And he had a bad spring, and he is starting at first base when first base is the easiest position to upgrade. There's always cheap talent available at that position. There's players you can take runs at. It's honestly a situation where Naylor, when he is ready to go, it's not Steve Kwan who should go away. Steve Kwan should be here to stay. 100% should be here to stay. You have so many players who are just fringe. Why? And it'd be one thing if the Guardians were the Rays, if the Guardians were the Padres, if the Guardians were the Mariners, and we saw them be a little bit more active in the conversion of talent. They haven't been. They just have not been. We have not seen the Miles Straw deal was an anomaly. When was, let's go find the last 3 trades this organization made. And you're going to see that, just trades that involved, non-supremely minor deals. Not like the DFA trade of Jake Bauers for Dominic Cassetta Stubbs. Like the Miles Straw deal was a deal that they traded from their roster that was not, to add a player to the roster. Or they traded someone away who wasn't someone they were already trying to cut. We'll talk about that and do a little bit of our Wednesday wrap-up for the college baseball in segment 3. But first, another quick break. You want to come back. The Guardians apparently like this draft. They're unwilling to trade their Comp A pick, so you want to listen in. This is a family-friendly show, but I kind of want to swear at our sponsor. Because, man, what are you doing to me, Built Bar? They have their first ever mini puff. We've talked about the fact that, I love puffs. The minis are fun. And you can now buy the Yellow Chirp, which you could only get before, included with the fudge brownie. And listen to this. Can I read to this one for you? A light lemon-flavored puff coated in a lemon-flavored shell, then dusted with sugar. So, it's got kind of like a peep, but it's healthy for you. 80 calories per one, so they're small. So normally I eat like 2 bars at lunch. With the minis, I eat 4 or 5. So that's, even if I eat 5, that's 400 calories. That's not bad for lunch. My total sugars in one of these things that is coated in sugar, you do get 6 grams, which for them is relatively high, but still not that high. And in terms of your healthiness in here, should we talk about the protein? Oh, that's right, 8 grams per one. I would get 40 grams of protein. You get you get more protein than you get sugar. I'm probably going to put an order in today. I mean, I love them. I love Built Bar. I love Puffs. I've been meaning to get some of these churro Puffs before they go away. I will definitely use the promo code LOCKED15 because I like saving money. This is the best tasting protein bar I've ever had. I'm going to do a order right now, by the way. Churro Puff and Yellow Chirps. You're going to be coming to my house and then soon into my belly. Those are my personal recommendations. I love Built Bar. If it wasn't for the fact it would take so long for me to sit here and do it on the show, I would be putting it in as we speak. Instead, you'll have to just take my word for it that I will be eating Built Bars until the cows come home. They are fantastic. They're healthy for you. Gets an A in my health food app and an A in my heart. Go to BuiltBar.com today. Use the promo code LOCKED15. It's the same code I use every time I place an order. That is BuiltBar.com, promo code LOCKED15. So let's talk some college baseball. Let's do some weekend wrap-up. On this show, we've talked about many arms. Talked about Drew Thorpe last week. By the way, second in strikeouts. We talked about Parker Messick, currently first in the country in strikeouts. Bryson Motts, who had the weirdest maybe line of the year, fourth. And in the preseason, we talked about Cooper Gerpe at Oregon State, who is currently tied for fifth, and Justin Campbell, who's currently tied with eighth. Who has fallen off a bit is Bryce Hubart, who is the teammate of Parker Messick. Just going down this list, some other players we have talked about, just in terms of strikeouts. We haven't talked about Chase Delander yet at Tennessee. We'll get to him. He's 20th. Hunter Barco, 24th, currently tied with Brandon Birdsell. And at 27, there is Hubart. This is still a pretty weak pitching class. I don't know if there's a college pitcher who goes in the first 20 picks right now. That is just the way I see it. No one's stepped up. I mean, players are performing well. There are players who have stepped up, but no one has elevated themselves to that area where you're going to feel comfortable calling their name early. And where the Guardians are picking at 16, I can't help but feel like any pitcher that they would grab would be a bit of a reach. So even though they went heavy pitcher a year ago, I just can't see it this year. I think, one of the reasons they went so heavy on pitching last year was the fact that that was the strength of the draft. They are going to lean into draft strengths, look at what they can find. This pitching class is it's probably the worst college pitching class I have ever seen. We talked about how the catching class is the greatest. Let's talk about one of the best hitters in college baseball this year, a player we have not mentioned on the show, Ivan Melendez, the Hispanic Titanic, maybe the best nickname in college baseball. You got to love that one, right? And, what this guy does is just hit the ball titanically far. 13 home runs, currently tied for second in the country. Spent his first 2 years of college at Odessa Junior College. Now one of those is the 2020 season, so it's really like 1.5 seasons. Was at Texas last year and performed extremely well. 319, 438, 603 for a 1.041 OPS. You look at a year ago, he had 13 home runs in 59 games. He's got 13 in 30 games this year. He has elevated his 319 a year ago, 387 right now. 438 slugging, 521 now. I'm sorry, that's on base. Slugging, 608 to 856. His ISO is 468. His BABIP every single year in college has been over 400. And again, BABIP tells us, if you've missed this before, that is maybe the best statistical indicator of hit tool, of guys who are going to hit for average as they move through the minors. So that's big. I mean, 417, 409, 463 when he was in a JUCO. Those tell you that, the power is clearly there. This is a strong guy. He is 6'3", 225. He's a first base only prospect, drafted last year by the Marlins in the 16th round. They were unable to sign him. I feel like the Marlins had, was it Birdsell or someone else last week we talked about that got away from them. I feel like, okay, well, he hits for a lot of power. I'm sure the strikeout rate, 18%. That's a low strikeout rate for a power hitter. And by the way, the walk percentage, 20%. So he's walking at an exceptionally high rate. He is striking out at a exceptionally low rate for a power hitter. He is hitting for a ton of power. The Big 12 is not the SEC, it's not the ACC, but, it competes with the Pac-12 for like the number 3 conference. He's statistically, do I go that far? He's statistically, I think he's the most interesting hitter in the country right now. When you just look at the overall, what he is doing, when you look at the BABIP, you look at the home runs, you look at the walk rate, percentage of the time he's walking, percentage of the time he's striking out. I don't know what other people view him. I feel like he's probably going to be somewhere. If I had to place a guess, when MLB updates their list, he'll be let's say 80s or 90s. I feel like guys who really perform end up there. Maybe he's in the like 110s or 120s. He'll be a famous name who's kind of in that range because, he is 22 already. He is an older prospect. He's a first base only prospect, but he is a guy that would just be fun to add. I mean, the statistical outliers are fantastic. Like if you get him as I'm probably looking in the 4th round. But I think in the 4th round, he's a fun addition to your minor league teams. He's just, great nickname, big tool, big power tools, big power ability. And again, the BABIP, the walk percentage, the strikeout percentage are really, really positive. That's what you want to look at. If you're looking for who's going to be a productive hitter, we know that power is there. Those other statistical points are great indicator stats as well. Like all of that comes together to say, this is a player maybe we want to look deeper on. Traditionally, he would slide a bit just because, again, first baseman, 22 years of age. That would be like, okay, well, it's been nice knowing you. You'll get a senior sign. He's going to get invited to the baseball combine. I can guarantee he'll be one of the top 300. And when he gets invited to that, that means that he has to be offered 15% of his slot. And, I can't stress those numbers enough. And it's not like he's only done it, against, because that's the thing, right? Early in the season, you're like, okay, so who have they faced? How many cupcakes have been on their schedule in the early going? Because as we've discussed on this very show, on many of these Wednesday wrap-ups, that you almost prefer looking at the small school numbers because in the early going, they're facing the powerhouses while the powerhouses are facing the weaker teams. Rice, a baseball program that has had its ups and downs. Texas A&M is a small one. Alabama, Sam Houston. Then in the Shriners Classic, Tennessee, LSU, UCLA, South Carolina in a doubleheader. Incarnate Word. So that was a week March one. I'm not familiar with that university. I'll be honest. Texas Tech, where they lost, but big performances. Oklahoma, always a solid baseball program. I'm going to be circling down here further. Oklahoma State. So it's at home, April 29th, 30th, and May 1st. That is going to be a fun series. And that is a good time to check out because we know Oklahoma State, as I've talked about in this very show, has 3 potentially draftable pitchers. Justin Campbell's probably going to be one of the top 10 college pitchers in this class. Victor Medeiros. We've talked about guys like Mitchell Stone, and I'm blanking on the fourth player off the top of my head. Bryce Osmond. I got it. I got back there. That's going to be the series to really check out. That's one to circle on your calendars right now to see the Hispanic Titanic go up against 3 draft-eligible starters. I'll say it again, April 29th, April 30th, May 1st. Check that series out. Do yourself a favor. I've been Jeff Ellis. This has been the Locked On Guardians podcast. I want to thank you for making Locked On Guardians your first listen today and every day, wherever it is that you get podcasts. And again, thank you to all the Locked On Guardians fans. The numbers have been doing super, super well. Let's break that top 10. That's like my one goal for this show, is to finally be one of our top 10 podcasts in the MLB network. Let's show them what the listenership can do. I know it is a frustrating time to be a Guardians fan. I mean, I am frustrated with the inaction, but I appreciate everyone who's listening in. I'm giving ideas. we're ahead of the game too. You know, the latest false rumor is something that I stated a week ago on this very show. So again, thank you all for listening, doing your part, rating and reviewing, downloading daily, subscribing on the YouTubes, and as we end every episode now, go Guardians, go.